The hall shimmered like something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, scattering warm golden light across rows of elegantly dressed guests. Soft violin music floated through the air, wrapping the moment in a kind of fragile perfection that almost felt too beautiful to be real. And maybe it wasn't. I stood at the altar, adjusting the cuffs of my suit for what felt like the 100th time. My hands were steady, but something inside me wasn't. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was inexplicable discomfort, like a whisper in the back of my mind, repeating something I couldn't quite hear. Relax, my best friend leaned in and whispered. You're about to marry the love of your life. I forced a smile. The love of my life. That's what everyone believed. That's what I had believed too. For years. Until recently. The music shifted. The doors at the end of the hall slowly opened, and every head turned at once. She stepped in, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. She looked breathtaking, dressed in white, walking slowly down the aisle. Her eyes locked forward, her expression calm, almost too calm. There was no nervous smile, no flicker of excitement. Just a strange, unreadable stillness. I told myself I was imagining things. This was normal. Weddings were overwhelming. Right? As she walked closer, the soft glow of the lights caught something around her neck. A necklace. Simple, elegant, silver, but unfamiliar. My chest tightened slightly. I frowned, trying to remember. Had I given her that? I was sure of it. I knew every piece of jewelry I had ever gifted her. Every ring, every bracelet, every small thing meant to make her smile. This wasn't one of them. She looks perfect, someone whispered behind me. Lucky man, another voice said. Lucky? Yeah. I swallowed the strange feeling rising in my throat. When she finally reached me, she didn't smile. Not the way she used to. Not the way she did when we first met. When her eyes would light up like I was the only person in the world. Now, her eyes felt distant. Like she was standing here, but her heart wasn't. Hey, I said softly, trying to catch her gaze. Hey, she replied. Just one word. Flat, controlled. The priest began speaking, his voice steady, practiced. Words about love, commitment, forever. Forever. I glanced at her again. That necklace caught the light once more. And this, Jimmy. I noticed something else. The pendant. It wasn't just simple. It had a design. A small engraving. Something I had seen before. But where? My mind raced, flipping through memories I didn't want to revisit. Late-night arguments. Her sudden silence whenever his name came up. The way she once said, "Some people are hard to forget." At the time, I thought she meant it as a lesson. Now, I wasn't so sure. A quiet murmur rippled through the guests. I barely heard it. My focus was locked on that necklace, on the growing realization tightening around my chest. Something wasn't right. And for the first time since this entire wedding began, felt like I was standing in someone else's story. And I was about to find out the truth whether I was ready or not. The moment didn't end at the altar, it froze there. Her necklace. I couldn't stop looking at it. A simple silver chain, with a small pendant resting just above her heart. But it wasn't simple to me. I had seen it before. Inga Shopi. Not in a memory we shared. Danim. My chest tightened. Do you like it? She asked softly, following my gaze. Her fingers lightly touched the pendant, almost instinctively as if protecting it. That small gesture hit harder than anything else. Where did you get it? I asked, my voice calm. Tom. For a second, she didn't answer. The music had stopped. The guests were watching. The priest was waiting. But between us, there was only silence heavy and suffocating. It's old, she finally said. It just means something to me. Something. Someone. But I wasn't stupid. Memories I had buried began crawling back. The late-night calls she used to step away for. The times she smiled at her phone, then locked it when I walked in. The way she once said, some things from the past don't need to be erased. At the time, I thought she meant pain. Now, I realized. She meant him. I clenched my jaw. So you wore it today? I asked quietly. On our wedding day. Her eyes met mine, calm, unshaken, almost challenging. Yes. That single word echoed louder than the entire hall. A murmur spread through the guests. I could feel the tension rising, whispers forming like cracks in glass. You could have taken it off, I said. Just for today. She shook her head slowly. I didn't want to pretend. Pretend. The word stabbed deeper than any confession. So what is this? I asked, my voice finally breaking through the calm. A wedding? Or a reminder? Her lips parted slightly, but no answer came. And in that silence, I understood everything. This wasn't about a necklace. It was about a space in her heart that I had never been allowed to enter. I took a slow breath, trying to steady myself. My fingers tightened around the ring in my hand, the symbol of everything. I thought we were building. Everything I thought was real. Do you still love him? I asked. This time, she didn't look away. But she didn't say no. That was enough. The world around me faded, the guests, the lights, the music. All of it became distant noise. All that remained was the truth standing in front of me. And the ring in my hand suddenly felt heavier than ever. I looked down at it, then back at her. And for the first time since she walked down the aisle, I hesitated. The silence at the altar didn't break, it deepened. I stood there, the ring still in my hand, my eyes locked on that necklace. It wasn't just jewelry anymore. It was a truth she refused to hide. Who gave it to you? I finally asked, my voice low but sharp enough to cut through the whispers around us. For a moment, she didn't answer. Then, slowly, she smiled. Not nervously, not guiltily, but calmly. That matters now, she sighed. Her response hit harder than any confession. Yes, I replied. It matters now more than anything. The guests began murmuring louder. My parents looked confused. Her family looked tense. Even the priest stepped back slightly, sensing something was about to collapse. She took a deep breath, then turned her head slightly toward the entrance. And that's when everything shattered. A man stepped inside. Tall, confident, dressed like he belonged there. And the moment I saw him, I understood. The way her fingers tightened around the necklace. The way her eyes softened just for a second. The way my chest suddenly felt hollow. He wasn't just someone. He was the reason. That's him, isn't it? I asked quietly. She didn't deny it. Yes. Juan Wargi. Juan Truth. Juan Betrayal. The entire hall froze as he walked closer. Each step echoed like a countdown to something irreversible. "Stop right there," I said, raising my hand. He stopped. But he didn't look surprised. Instead, he looked at me like he had already won. "I didn't come to ruin anything," he said calmly. "I just came to take back what was always mine." The audacity of those words made the air feel heavier. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was unbelievable. "Yours," I repeated. "She's standing here in a wedding dress, about to marry me." He tilted his head slightly. "And yet," he said, "she's still wearing my promise." My grip tightened around the ring. I looked at her again, really looked this time. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. She wasn't torn. She wasn't confused. She had already chosen. I just wasn't the one she chose. "Tell me the truth," I said, my voice quieter now but far more dangerous. "If he didn't walk in today, would you have still married me?" She hesitated. Just for a second. But that second was enough. Answer me. Her eyes met mine. And this chimney. There was no softness left. No. The word echoed louder than anything else that had happened so far. It wasn't just an answer. It was a verdict. The guests gasped. Someone dropped something in the back. My mother covered her mouth. Her father looked like he wanted to disappear. And me? I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. No shock. Just clarity. I slowly lowered my hand, the one holding the ring. Then I looked at the man. "Congratulations," I sighed calmly. "You didn't just interrupt a wedding." I paused. "You saved me from a mistake." For the first time, his expression changed. And then, I turned to her. "You didn't betray me today," I added. "You just vi always ban." Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she didn't expect me to walk away this easily. But I wasn't going to fight for someone who never stood with me. I placed the ring on the altar. Not thrown. Not dropped. Placed. With intention. With finality. Then, without looking back, I stepped down and walked past everyone, past the whispers, past the judgment, past the version of my life that was never truly mine. Behind me, I heard her voice. My name. Once. Soft. Almost regretful. But I didn't stop, because for the first time, I wasn't losing her. I was freeing myself. The city felt different that night. Not because anything had changed, but because he had. Rain tapped softly against the car window as he drove away from the wedding hall. The echoes of whispers, gasps, and her voice still chasing him like ghosts. His hands stayed steady on the wheel, but inside, something had finally gone silent. Firm. No desperation. No begging. Just clarity. For years, he had loved her like she was the center of his world. He built dreams around her, shaped his future with her name written in every plan. And yet, in the end, she stood at the altar wearing another man's memory around her neck. That was the moment he realized something brutal. He was never competing with another man. He was competing with a version of her heart that never belonged to him. A new beginning. 3 weeks later, The wedding that never happened became a story people whispered about. But he was no longer there to hear it. He had left the city, not in shame, not in defeat, but in decision. A new job, a new environment, a new version of himself. The man who once waited for love was now Bill Bilpender. His mornings started earlier now. His phone stayed silent longer. And for the first time in years his mind was peaceful. The glow-up no one expected. Months passed. The quiet transformation turned into something visible. The same man who once stood uncertain at the altar was now confident, composed, and unreachable. He wasn't trying to prove anything. That's what made it powerful. He worked harder, dressed sharper, spoke less but carried more weight in every word. People began to notice. Not because he chased attention, but because he stopped needing it. Meanwhile, she stayed behind. Back in the city, she was still surrounded by everything that reminded her of that day. The unfinished wedding, the whispers, the questions, and the necklace, the one she thought meant everything. Now, it felt heavier than ever, because for the first time she saw clearly what she had done. She didn't lose him when he walked away. She lost him the moment she hesitated. The first crack of regret. One evening, she stood alone in her apartment, staring at her reflection. Her fingers touched the necklace slowly. Her eyes softened, then broke, because no matter how many times she replayed that moment in her mind, the ending never changed. He never turned back. Once. Two worlds, one direction. He was moving forward. She was stuck in the past. And somewhere between those two realities, fate was quietly preparing something neither of them expected. Because sometimes the story doesn't end when someone walks away. That's when it truly begins. The hall was filled with light, but to him, everything felt strangely quiet. Soft music played in the background as guests whispered, smiled, and waited. The decorations were perfect white roses, golden lights, and a long aisle that led to a future he had carefully chosen. He stood at the altar, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, calm, composed, unreadable. After everything that had happened, he had rebuilt his life piece by piece. No more chasing. No more waiting. No more pain. Today was supposed to be simple. Today, he was supposed to move on. But fate doesn't care about supposed to. Just as the ceremony was about to begin, a sudden murmur spread through the crowd. The doors opened, and she walked in. She wasn't dressed for the occasion. No makeup, no elegance. Pride. Just truth. Her hair was slightly messy. Her eyes red as if she hadn't slept for days. And her hands trembled as she stepped forward. The same girl who once stood at another altar, wearing someone else's necklace. The same girl who let him walk away. Now she stood there, breathless, broken, and finally honest. I know I shouldn't be here. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop walking. But if I don't say this now, I'll lose you forever. The entire hall fell silent. All eyes turned to him. Waiting. Judging. Watching. He didn't move. Didn't react. Didn't even blink. Inside, something shifted. She stepped closer, her voice shaking. That necklace. It wasn't love. A palsy. It was guilt. Tears rolled down her face. I was afraid to let go of the past. even when my heart had already chosen you. The words hit harder than anything she had ever said before. Because this time, there were no lies behind them, no hesitation, no running away. I thought I needed time. I thought I needed answers. She continued, her voice breaking more with each word. But all I did was lose, the one person who never gave up on me. She looked up at him, not with pride, not with expectation, but with fear. The kind of fear that only comes when you know you're already too late. I don't deserve another chance, she whispered. But I needed you to know. I chose you, even if I realized it too late. Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. The woman beside him, the one he was about to marry, watched everything quietly. No anger. No drama. Just understanding. Because even she knew. This wasn't just a wedding anymore. This was a decision. He finally moved. One step forward. The entire room held its breath. He looked at her. Really looked at her. Not the girl who hurt him. Not the girl who chose someone else. But the girl who finally came back. Without pretending. You came late, breathed calmly. Her tears fell faster. I know. Another steppy. Closer now. Close enough to see every regret in her eyes. For the first time. He continued slowly. You didn't run. She shook her head. I won't run anymore. Allons pauser. A lifetime inside a moment. Then he turned. Not toward her, but toward the altar. Toward the life he had built. Toward the woman who stood beside him. Angeli. He removed the ring from his finger. Gasps filled the hall. I spent years loving someone who wasn't ready, he said quietly. And when I finally let go, I found peace. He looked at the woman beside him. I'm sorry. She gave a soft, knowing smile. It's okay. You deserve the right ending. Then he turned back. To her. Love, he said, his voice softer now, isn't about who comes back. I step closer. It's about who stays. Her breath stopped. Her heart shattered. And then he walked past her. Not in anger. Not in revenge. But in closure. She collapsed to her knees. Tears breaking through everything she tried to hold together. Because this time, she understood. Outside the hall, the sunlight felt different. Lighter. Freer. For the first time in years. He wasn't waiting for anyone. He wasn't chasing anyone. He wasn't holding on to the past. He was finally choosing himself. And sometimes, that's the only ending that truly matters.
Why did it have to be this way? I have to be strong now.